Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock, well, maybe 2 minutes after 4 on October 10th, 2017. I'd like to call to order the Board of Commissioners meeting. Please take the roll, Madam Clerk.
Durancheck.
Here.
Krieger.
Yes.
Big Ick.
Here.
Coonan.
Here.
Ryder.
Here.
Lutz.
Here.
Herrick.
Here.
All members accounted for, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Please stand for the invocation. And the pledge of allegiance.
Almighty God, we ask that you will bless this session of the County Commission today. Give to its members the courage of their own convictions so that they might work for the common good of all with the strength of confidence placed in them by election to office. May your divine providence guide our county and bring dignity, prosperity, respect, and order to every citizen. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda today will be the minutes from 9/12/17.
So moved. Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, citizen input. Is anyone from the audience that'd like to address the commission? Could you please step forward? Nobody wants to. This might be a first. But that's okay. So, seeing no citizen input, we'll move on to petitions and communications. First thing on the agenda will be the designation of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Bay County. Is there anyone here from the Women's Center? Perfect, perfect. Madam Clerk, could you please read the resolution?
I'm going to read it off here or my own? Do you want it? Okay.
Yeah.
Afternoon. By the Bay County Board of Commissioners. Home should be a special place of warmth, unconditional love, tranquility, and security. And for most of us, home and family can indeed be counted amongst our greatest blessings. Tragically, for many Americans, these are blessings that are tarnished by violence and fear. And whereas every 9 seconds a woman in the United States is assaulted by an intimate partner, whereas an average of 3 women are murdered by an intimate partners in the United States every day, and a person experiencing strangulation in a relationship is 7 times more likely to be murdered by their partner. And according to the American Psychological Association, the presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide by 500%. And whereas, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics Crime Data Brief, intimate partner violence, February 2003, women accounted for 85% of the victims of intimate partner violences, men for approximately 15%. And whereas women are not the only targets, men, children, the elderly, family pets, and responding law enforcement officers are counted among the victims. And whereas, according to a study by Break the Silence 2006, witnessing violence is the strongest risk factor in transmitting violent behavior from one generation to the next. Whereas, according to the National Resource Center on Domestic Violence, approximately 23% of LGBTQ men and 50% of LGBTQ women experience abuse at the hands of their intimate partners. Whereas, domestic violence costs an estimated $8.3 billion annually in medical care, mental health services, and lost productivity on the job. Women, men, and children living with domestic violence suffer higher rates of physical injuries, chronic health problems, depression, PTSD, attempted suicide, substance abuse, behavior problems for children, and homelessness. In an effort to end domestic violence and provide safety to victims and their families through emergency shelter, 24-hour crisis line, and counseling support groups and advocacy, the Bay Area Women's Center offer free of charge services to these victims. Whereas the theme of Domestic Violence Awareness Month 2017 is a community in solidarity, rising from the ashes of domestic violence. Therefore, be it resolved that the Bay County Board of Commissioners, along with the Bay County Executive, proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Bay County and urge our citizens to observe this month by becoming aware of the tragedy of domestic violence, supporting those who are working toward its end, and participating in community efforts. Signed, Thomas Herrick, Board Chair, Jim Barsha, Executive, and Luzak, Clerk.
Thank you. Would you please like to step forward and receive this proclamation?
Jessica Gregory.
Jessica Gregory. Here we go. On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, County Executive, and everyone in Bay County, thank you.
Thank you.
Big smile, please.
There's a lion picture. Thank you.
I'll expect that on my Facebook phone.
Yes, good job.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
I just wanted to say thank you to the entire community, the county, always for supporting our efforts at the Women's Center. Our theme this year for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as you heard, is a community in solidarity rising from the ashes of domestic violence. This isn't just an individual or a family issue. This is something that does affect our whole community. And we're here along with you, dedicated to rise from those ashes of domestic violence and make a better life for everyone here in our community. So thank you so much for your dedication.
Very good.
On the seriousness of this issue, and I want to say I was delighted to join in your walk to the courthouse, lots, and I think we should keep the battle up because we have a long way to go. We want to eradicate domestic violence from equal to women in the future. And it's you and all of your volunteers in Bay County that will make that happen.
Hey, we're the only folks working to put ourselves out of work, so. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move this resolution forward.
Support. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next, retirement recognition of Ann Arnold. Could you please step forward? Mr. Barsha, would you like to take that, please? Madam Clerk, could you please read a little certificate?
State of Michigan, County of Bay, the Bay County Board of Commissioners, and the Bay County Executive, on behalf of the citizens of Bay County, are proud to present this special recognition to Ann Arnold in honor of her 17 years of devoted public service to Bay County as an employee of the Michigan State University Extension Service. Dated October 10, 2017.
I want to present you with this special certificate in appreciation for your dedicated service to the residents of Bay County and the fine job you did with Michigan State University Extension for 17 years. That's a long time, and we appreciate very much the difference that you made enhancing the quality of life for all the people you touched during your years with MSU and here in Bay County. So, on behalf of the board, I'll present this to you, and once again, thank you and wish you the best in retirement. You're a young lady, so you got a long time to enjoy some of the last time with us.
And 6 dogs.
Want to get a photo?
What a nice thing to get on my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Should we sing happy birthday to you?
Yeah, yeah, we should. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ann. Happy birthday to you.
I just want to thank Bay County for letting MSU be in our office there and work with the people. There's been over thousands of families I've touched, children, parents, the elderly, and hopefully giving them positive information. And it's made my life more positive, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to miss you. Next on the agenda will be we'll have Lynn Wilson and Mary Coulis from Consumers Energy to tell us about the decommissioning of the J.C. Weadock plant. Good to see you, Mary.
Good afternoon. You wanna come up? Do we have the presentation? Do we need to load the presentation in the computer? Yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Sorry. Thank you. Chairman Herrick, County Executive Barsha, members of the Board of Commission, we really appreciate this opportunity to give you an update on what's been happening with Weadock. There are two members, myself and another member of our team here with you today. We are the A team. Not really. My name is Mary Coulis, and I'm the Community Affairs Manager, and I'm going to let Amy introduce herself.
I'm Amy Genro. I'm the lead engineer for the Weadock Decommissioning Project, responsible to ensure our contractor follows all regulatory requirements as well as consumers' energy requirements. Play that.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so I'm basically going to take you to the point of how we got here, and then Amy is the technical person, and she's going to get into the nuts and bolts of the actual project itself, which is very interesting. So I think most of you are all very familiar with the J.C. Weadock plant that operated from 1940 up until last year. So it hit almost 76 years, very close anyway. And it was Weadock 7 and 8 generated enough electricity to power 300,000 households. And it really had a strong record of environmental and community service that was evidenced with our wildlife habitat certification that we have received every year, as well as our community volunteers, our employee volunteers that are out there in the community volunteering on behalf of many organizations in Bay County. So, of course, in 2011, we were faced with, a couple of different things. The market forces, as well as some upcoming environmental regulations that really would have required a unit-by-unit environmental equipment retrofit on each of the units, and it was just too costly of a burden to put on each one of those units. So Weadock Unit 7 and 8, as well as 5 other units in our generating fleet. They included our plant in Muskegon and then another plant in Monroe County. We affectionately called them the Classic 7, and we made the decision in 2011 to retire those units. So then we really ramped up with our efforts to work with the community, and not only that, but certainly work with our employees for what the transition would mean to them. So, basically, the good news about this is that with the employees that were at Weadock, they transitioned into other roles. Either they went over to Karn, they went to other positions within the company, or else they retired. So we didn't have any job loss as a result of that. It was, as a result of very good planning. But now we're really ready to move forward. We've moved ahead the schedule for the actual decommissioning process, which Amy is going to detail for you. but we've been able to move it ahead about a year ahead of schedule. So we do have people who are mobilizing now to get us into the decommissioning stage. So with that, I'm going to let Amy take it from here.
This is a high-level look at our project schedule for the Weadock decommissioning. So like Mary mentioned, right now we are beginning with demolition of outbuildings on the site. So some of our coal handling and ash handling buildings, demolishing will start in 2017. We're also starting abatement of regulated materials within the main building on site. So by regulated materials, I mean things like asbestos that have specific requirements for how they can be collected and disposed. And that will last for about a year into late 2018, the abatement portion of the project. So you won't see a lot as that's happening inside the building. Starting next year, we'll begin demolition of the chimneys on site, planning to begin with the large chimney, the 500-foot chimney on the south end of the site, and then proceeding with the smaller chimneys later in 2018. That's because the smaller chimneys actually have abatement that has to occur first. They have a ACM coating on them, an asbestos-containing coating. And then finally, in 2018, towards the end of the year, we'll begin demolition of the main plant structure, which will also last about a year into, midway through 2019, and ending with site restoration in 2019, which to us means backfilling the basement, topsoil, seeding it, so we're left with a grassy field there where the Weadock plant stood. This is a visual of that schedule. So in an aerial view here, you see the Saginaw River on the left, north is up. What we're starting this year in 2017 is shown here shaded in blue. So on the north end, you see our coal conveyors. That abatement is going on right now. Demolition will start soon in those areas. Toward the right side of that photo, or the east side, the ash silo is highlighted. So there's already demolition occurring out at our ash handling silo area, and also the switchyard just east of the plant. So the substation that served the plant will be demolished this fall as well. All that equipment will be removed. And then next, highlighted in yellow, you see that chimney demolition to the south. So the large 500-foot chimney will be demolished in early 2018. We're also entertaining an option to pull that schedule ahead and possibly mobilize on that chimney late this year, if we're able to. And finally, highlighted in red there, you see the main plant structure. So abatement is starting this fall in the main plant structure, but demolition of that will not occur until 2018, 2019. With consumers, safety is always our #1 focus. We work closely with our contractors to review their work plans, make sure they're selecting safe methods for their work. We also carefully monitor changing conditions on the site, especially weather in a project like this along the river, and redirect work as needed based on weather day to day. 2016 was the safest year for Consumers Energy in our history, so we plan to continue that trend, especially on this project. Public safety is also critical. In 2016, when we took the plants offline, we did have our local first responders on site just to familiarize them with the site, and we plan to continue to do that as conditions change on site. North American Dismantling Corporation has been selected as our general contractor for the abatement, dismantling, and demolition of Weadock. They are based in Lapeer, Michigan, so this feeds right into our Michigan-based business initiative with Consumers Energy. They also have a great safety record, which was no small part in selecting them for this work. And we've worked positively with them in the past. They did some demolition of the precipitators on our Carn Weadock site in about 2011, and they've also worked on the west side of the state for Consumers Energy. This is just a visual for you of how demolition of the main plant structure will appear if you're seeing it from the river or off-site. This is an example photo from North American Dismantling of a similar project at a power plant. You can see their high-reach excavator here. They work cutting from the top down, so they don't create any structural instability. They start from the top down. And they have water sprays right on the stick of the excavator, as well as additional booms, so they control dust right as they work. And as that material comes down to the ground, they have additional excavators with grapples sorting it immediately into scrap dumpsters, metal dumpsters, or trash dumpsters, so minimizing dust on site. Here's another example photo. This is what the demolition of the 500-foot stack will look like. This is a patented machine owned by International Chimney Corporation. We are subcontracting to them to do this work. This is essentially a rotating jackhammer. So they take this machine and jack it up the center of the stack using notches in the interior. Once it's set on top, it has wheels or rollers, and it rotates around the top of the stack like a corkscrew, jackhammering 4-foot by 4-foot sections and pulling these sections into the stack so then we can clear out the debris from the bottom of the stack and they can continue work. So we've chosen something like this. It minimizes personnel up there. They only have a couple employees up at the top of the stack to cut rebar as the jackhammering is, completed to release those sections. And typical progress on something like this is 18 feet a day. That would be a good day. So that's how you'll see the stack come down. Below 250 feet, we don't need this specialized equipment. North American Dismantling self-performs this work, and they use hydraulic pulverizer hung from a crane you see here. So they hang that pulverizer from a crane, and there's an operator on the ground that controls the hydraulic unit. So again, minimizing personnel. You just have one operator in the crane, one running the hydraulic unit, and essentially crushes the concrete, or munches, they say munches down the stack. So that minimizes dust and much safer for the workers.
Thanks, Amy. So just to recap, this is a $27 million project. We're looking to have about 60 workers in support of this effort, include laborers and other trades, skilled trades opportunities, and certainly through our work with Pure Michigan Business Connect, we're committed to spending $1 billion a year with local Michigan goods and services. So, that's certainly something that's important to us. We want to keep things within the state of Michigan. We want our state to thrive. In terms of the construction impacts and mitigation, we don't expect to see a huge increase in any traffic. Certainly, we will be working with the Road Commission in terms of getting the required permits and following the required path that they would want us to take. And in terms of the dust, I think that Amy, outlined this very well. She said that, with the spray nozzles that are on the equipment, as the equipment comes down, it will help to keep any kind of dust contained. And then in terms of the noise, you will be hearing noise. Our neighbors, I'm sure, across the river will be hearing some noise, the pounding, particularly as the huge chimney is coming down. But the good news is that the contractor will be working during the work week, Monday through Friday, during the normal business hours, so you won't be seeing or hearing the activity occur on the weekend. And of course, as we have said, we do fully intend to meet all environmental requirements, both on-site, permitting requirements off-site, as we always have, and we'll be working closely with local officials as we move forward in this process. And then we do have a hotline if folks have questions. I don't know if you have that on your... You don't. We will pass along the phone number where you can reach us if there's anyone that might have any questions specific to the project. There's a number that's just a general voicemail box number where you can leave your voicemail, and someone from our team will be getting back with you. So this was really just kind of a high-level opportunity for us to give you an overview of what's happening in the upcoming months, year and a half ahead of us. And so with that, I wonder if anyone has any questions. Hi, Kim.
With the decommissioning of those 3 plants, how do they make up for the loss of the load that they're...
Well, and in terms of...
anything new, or is it...
Well, we had purchased a natural gas plant in Jackson. We had purchased that, I can't remember what time frame that was, I want to say maybe 2015. But, you know, that was in part of not just the 2 units, but certainly all 7 of the Classic 7. You know, we had to take that into consideration.
So you end up buying more online, or?
Right now, no, we have been able to meet the needs of our customers primarily with the purchase of this gas plant. We're also making investments in renewable energy as well with the wind project in Tuscola County with our Crosswinds Energy Park and in other projects that we're looking at.
It seemed, I was listening to the news today, and I like what the utilities are doing. Consumers and DTE are going renewable, you know, and they're going away from coal, which, number one, I think oil is cheaper than coal right now, or natural gas, excuse me. It's cheaper than coal, but it looked like in Washington that they were going to rescind the regulations and go back to, you know, any type of energy that you needed. And maybe and you look at what technology has done over the last 10 or 15 years, bringing the cost of energy down in the renewables, whether it's solar or whatever it might be. So I think that the utilities have got the right idea in regards to generating in the future, whether it's, I think they're better off. I think I'm happy that they are going to stick to the renewables.
Well, and I think that you bring up a good point with the recent decision to remove that clean power plan. I think that's what you were bringing up. You know, at consumers, we're not really necessarily hedging any of our bets on what's happening in, you know, federally, from a federal standpoint. We're moving forward towards what is best in, you know, for our customers and our generating portfolio and serving the state of Michigan.
Commissioner Krieger.
Just to follow up with Kim, is there a forecast as far as in the future when coal might not be a source, or will that always stay there?
Well, you know, it's a good question, and it's a hard question to answer, really. It is certainly still part of our generating portfolio, and I will also say that we're continuously, and I mean continuously, with this ever-changing energy landscape, we're always looking at, you know, what is going to be the most economical generating source for our customers in terms of cost, what is happening out there in the environment. We want to deliver the best value for our customers. So we're always looking at the investments that we are making in our generating assets and what's best for our customers. Right now, it's still a part of our generating portfolio.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Begay.
Somebody asked me about the nuclear plants the other day. Is Palisades your nuclear plant? Or
That is not our nuclear plant.
And Fermi? Is that
Pardon?
Fermi
No,
is also
no, that's not
But I heard,
ours.
is Palisades closing? Somebody was asking me.
They
if
are,
it's
they
closing.
had planned to close, but as a result of a recent ruling by the Public Service Commission, they will continue to stay open until 2021, 2022 timeframe.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mary, I'll get you, how about,
Thank you, Mr.
Go ahead, you
Chairman.
go first.
I just wanted to thank both of you for the informative presentation. Say also, I agree with Commissioner Coonan that in terms of the policy of consumers' energy, you plan to continue to incorporate alternative energy and reduce the carbon imprint in the environment, as well as you know, expand your base so that you have natural gas, probably still fossil fuel, as well as alternative energy, wind, and you won't be doing solar because that would be too massive a project, I would assume.
We do have small solar projects, but I will tell you our focus has been on the wind energy front. And I will also say that in keeping with the recent passage of the state's energy law at the end of last year, our goal as a utility is to provide at least 20% of our generating capacity through renewable energy, and wind is going to continue to be our focus for right now. But,
Well,
yeah, good
thank
point.
you, Mary, and thanks for the great job you do on behalf
Thank
of
you.
Consumers Energy and your role as government affairs representative, keeping us all informed and seeking our input as well.
Thank you very much.
And it is sad to see the iconic, current Weadock plant, which has been a part of our landscape and a great source of economic jobs and a real major taxpayer in the region, come to an end. But we know that things evolve.
Well, and I
it's still
appreciate
going to be a
that.
strong presence, but we're going to miss
Well,
Weadock
yes.
and all the employment it did provide for decades.
Well, yeah, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I will say that we have been working with the township for several years now, at least since 2011, recognizing that these plants were going to be going offline. So we've been working with them in terms of, the tax revenue and that sort of thing, so that it's no surprise to them. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
What's the outreach of that plant, within the state, within the county, the tri-county area, the state, for the energy that's produced there? Do you have any idea?
What is the current megawatt capability of Karn right now?
1 and 2 would be over 500 megawatts, and 3 and 4 are 1,200 together.
1,200, okay.
So, does this energy go through the thumb, or does it go out?
It goes anywhere into the
Anywhere.
grid.
It's just
just
kinda
electrons
grabs
that
as
are
it needs it?
moving into the grid. Yeah, it can go and serve anyone, anywhere.
What would that be, 1.7 million
Anywhere
households?
switch is turned on.
Yeah.
And could you mention, you want to mention the phone number of, that people can call with questions?
Yes, I thought I had that handy, but I will pass that along to you so that you can share that
Well, I
with
can
your fellow
mention it since you don't
commissioners.
have it. I have it right here.
And the
I just
number
thought you
is,
had
I'm
it.
sorry, I didn't commit it to memory. Go ahead.
That's fine. It's so anybody who has questions can dial 989-891-3232. That's 989-891-3232. And since people are seeing this live, they might write it down. They might call you before you get it. They might call that number, leave you a message before you get back.
That's
to
all
the
right.
office.
We get emails on it right away, so,
And
yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Need a motion to receive, please?
So moved.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda will be the Maximus presentation by Ron. Ron, I'm not going to try to say it. I'll let you say it. Weadock? Is it Weadock? Weadock. Okay. I didn't want to harm it. I didn't want to do that to you. But thank you for your help.
Sure.
And he's going to talk about the indirect cost plan.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. My name is Ron Weadock. I work for Maximus Consulting. I was responsible for the preparation of the Bay County 2016 cost plan, as well as several cost plans prior to this. Today, I'd like to discuss the purpose of the cost plan and a high-level overview of what goes into actually developing the cost plan. If there are ever any questions, feel free to stop me. And we're probably not going to get into a lot of the detail of the cost plan, which there is a lot of. But if there are ever any questions regarding the information in the cost plan, you can feel free to contact Jan or someone else in the finance department, and I'd be more than happy to meet with anyone to go over that detail. Today, what I'd like to do is discuss what a Title II CFR Part 200 cost plan is. Those are the guidelines that we follow in the preparation of the cost plan for Bay County, why we follow those guidelines, also the steps involved in preparing that, and then I'll also review some of the other uses of the cost allocation plan. So what the Title II CFR is the federal OMB issued a circular which discusses the guidelines for identifying what types of costs can be charged to federal grant programs, both direct costs as well as indirect costs. I'm primarily responsible for identifying those indirect costs, and I need to make sure the cost plan is in compliance with those federal guidelines. There are other types of cost allocation plans that don't necessarily follow the federal guidelines. Most municipalities only have the Title II cost plan prepared. There are a few that have prepared what's called a full cost plan. Typically, that would probably be cities who use the cost plan primarily to charge utilities, water, sewer, electric. The full cost plan would identify a greater amount of indirect costs, not significantly more, but it would usually be more. But again, since that's not what you're using a cost plan for, and you're using it primarily to recover indirect costs from federal programs, there may be a few programs you have that could be charged from a full cost plan, but the cost benefit of having a full cost plan just probably wouldn't be in your best interest to, I think the only thing you have as far as enterprise funds go is a golf course. Yes, sir.
We don't have a full cost plan here, right?
That is correct. You're only doing the Title II.
Now, is the primary reason we have someone like Maximus doing this analysis of who should pay what, is it because it's federally driven?
It is. You have to understand the federal regs, and you have to make sure and have this cost plan prepared annually if you want to recover all those indirect costs.
From federal?
From the federal grants.
State grants as well?
State grants do, well, in the past, they've always sort of followed in lockstep with the feds. They required it as well. However, it seems that they're being more restrictive. Now, they can be more restrictive on their grants. In fact, in the case of the child care fund, they have their own handbook which identifies indirect costs that are eligible, and a lot of it they disallow. And so they can disallow costs. If you get grants from other agencies, they can put caps on the amount of indirect costs that you can recover from that grant. So when you're applying for a grant, you'll have to decide whether you actually, want the grant based on how much you can recover.
So the federal grant, because the federal grants are going down. So it would be just to recover a portion of a grant that you would say comes back to the general fund for the let's say Maximus, or you don't lose the whole federal grant. You only lose a portion of what would be required to come back to support the services that the county provides. Is that somewhat accurate?
I'm not sure I'm following exactly what you're saying.
Here's what I'm saying. You get a federal grant. If you don't have this study done, you lose the federal grant? Or
No. You can get the federal grant and you can still recover your direct costs.
Right.
The majority of costs associated with any program is typically direct costs.
Right.
In order to recover the indirect costs, which I'll discuss in shortly here, you do have to have the cost allocation plan. Now, with the new federal regs under this Title II, in the past, you always had to have a cost plan. Now, they will allow you to use what's called the de minimis rate, which is a 10% rate, which is less than what you would get using the cost plan. But if you chose not to have a cost plan done, you could still at least recover something. In the past, they said if you don't have a cost plan, you cannot recover any of the indirect costs.
So if we didn't have a cost plan, Maximus wouldn't be getting our work, right?
Correct. And you would lose out. The 10% is applied to most of the expenses in a grant, but not all of them. And typically, the cost allocation plan identifies indirect costs that is far greater than the 10% de minimis rate. And so it is a beneficial document to have prepared for you as far as cost recovery goes.
Thanks,
So again, why do you do a Title II CFR Part 200 cost plan? It's in order to recover those costs. You want to make sure and recover as much of your indirect costs as you can from the federal grants. Most federal grants don't restrict how much indirect costs you can charge, as long as you can document those costs and as long as those costs are in compliance with the federal regs. Again, as I said, the state grants, they can be a little more restrictive, and they have been getting even more restrictive in recent years. And there are many other agencies who offer some grants who, again, cap their grants. And I can't speak to every grant out there, but you'd have to look at any grant application, and it usually spells out in that grant if you can charge indirect costs, and if so, are those costs limited to a certain percentage? Some of the steps involved in preparing the cost allocation plan is when I first come on site to do some of my work, I'm collecting information from all the different county departments. We segregate those departments into two groups. Central service departments, those are those departments that provide support services to other county departments, and then all the other departments default into the receiving departments, and those would be the departments that are benefiting from the services of those central service departments. Once we identify which departments are the central service departments, we then drill down into all the expenses in those departments to make sure we've accounted for all their expenses and to make sure they qualify to be allocated. There may be certain expenses within a department that are disallowed and cannot be allocated, so we have to make sure we've accounted for all those expenses properly. Once we do that, we reconcile those to the audited financial statements. And then if there are any additional expenses that we can include with the departments that are not part of your audited financial statements, I will go through and figure what those costs are. The biggest item is probably depreciation. Usually general fund departments, which make up most of the central service departments, don't record depreciation in their budgets. But if they have equipment, or in the case of the buildings and grounds, we include depreciation on all of the buildings that are occupied by county departments. That depreciation can also be included with the department's expenses, so you can recover those costs as well. Once we identify all those expenses that are eligible for each central service department, we then take those costs and we interview the employees within those departments to find out what exactly it is they do. When we find out what they do and how they spend their time, we take that cost and put it into different cost pools and then find the most appropriate driver to spread those costs. So in the case of the finance department, we may break that department into several cost pools. There could be accounts payable, there could be fixed assets, there could be purchasing, budgeting, and so on. And each of those cost pools have different drivers to spread those costs. In the case of accounts payables, that may be the number of accounts payable transactions by department. In the case of if they're processing payroll, although I believe here the majority of payroll is done by the HR department, but that may be an FTE count or a number of paychecks issued or something of that nature. The cost software we use summarizes all this information in the plan. The Schedule A, Summary Schedule A in the front of the document, and I believe you should have received the cost allocation plans, Jan. There is a summary schedule if you ever want to look at that. That's the primary summary schedule that most people reference to. It will list every central service department as well as every receiving department, so you can cross-reference to see how much cost is being allocated to a receiving department from each of the central service departments. So if I want to look at the health department, if the health department's allocated share of costs is $400,000, we can see how much is coming from buildings and grounds. That might be, $200,000. Could be another $30,000 from finance and some from corporation counsel and so on and so forth. The Schedule A is probably what most people reference to. The document itself is probably about 300 pages. There's a lot of detail that supports that summary schedule, and that's what I get into with some of the staff in the finance department. We'll review that, and again, if there's any information in there you would like to review and don't understand how those costs flow through this plan, I'd be more than happy to meet with you and go over that. And then looking at this year's cost plan, the total central service costs in the 2016 cost plan for all the central service.
So, Ernie, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
Just curious, and I know we may have received this, our total expense with your organization to do this, what's it cost us a year?
For this particular project, is that about 12,000? Yes.
Okay.
And I'm looking at, and just, I think.
And that's a 5-year contract, is that what we're doing?
It was a 3-year contract, and then I think we extended it for an additional 2 years, and with the completion of the 16 cost plan, I believe that was the last year of the contract. So we will need to, if you want to continue to have this done, we will have to enter into a new contract.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. In 2016, the total central service costs that were allocated in the cost plan were $7,297,000, a slight decrease from the previous year, which were $7,308,000, only $10,000 decrease. While in total, the central service costs have decreased slightly, that doesn't mean any one individual department costs are going to decrease, because there are so many factors that impact how much cost is allocated to a receiving department. We could have one department, such as the human resources cost, go up. Another department, such as finance, could go down, but because the cost drivers allocate costs differently to each of the receiving departments, just because costs are going down in total doesn't mean any one individual department costs are going to go down. But on average, they should have gone down just slightly. When we prepare the cost plan, and the one item that seems to really bother a lot of people is what's called a roll forward. If you ever look through the cost allocation plan, you'll see a roll forward calculation. This is a method to true up the difference between what was actually billed to a department in a given year versus what actually happened. For example, in this year, the 2016 cost plan, which was just prepared, that will actually be used to bill departments in 2018. When 2018's cost allocation plan is prepared, there will be a comparison between what actually happened in 2018 with what you actually billed in 2018 from the 2016 cost plan, and that difference gets rolled forward as an adjustment. If we find out that you underbill the department, that difference gets added to that cost plan, and they have to pay an additional amount called the roll forward. If you overbill, there could be a credit. So in any given year, those roll forwards can play havoc with people's budgets if they try to, budget for indirect cost and don't know what to expect, especially in times of costs increasing. Usually you can expect those roll forwards to increase. But if costs are decreasing, hopefully you can also see a corresponding negative roll forward. But again, those roll forwards are difficult to manage sometimes, and that seems to be the one item that departments who are charged indirect costs have the biggest problem with, is the roll forward. It's a timing issue, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We try to manage it as best we can, but sometimes it's difficult. Other than that, I think that covers most of the high-level information. I would like to thank a lot of the staff within the central service departments that I work with, especially in the finance department, but several of the others, they are a valuable resource of information. They get a lot of information to me that helps me to process this, and I couldn't accomplish this without their help.
Thank you. Any questions, anyone? No? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Need a motion to receive, please?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Heisted, you are up next, please. So now we will do the public hearing on proposed 2018 Bay County budget.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Can I make a few comments before
Yes.
I begin? First of all, I'd like to say the 2018 executive proposed budget represents $140 million of total county spending. That's a $3 million increase over last year's 2017 funding level. Of the $3 million increase, however, 73% comes from millage-funded activities, so it will not have an impact on the general fund account. The retirement fund and our fund balance levels continue to be strong and certainly add a tremendous value to the assets of Bay County. And I want to thank especially the retirement board for their diligent work on having what I believe is probably one of the most well-funded retirement systems of the 83 counties. We continue to strive to find new funding sources to cover our capital needs and requests. And recently we have had good news, and I've attended some groundbreakings, especially in the western part of Bay County, out of Williams Township. A lot of investment going on in the park, the industrial park out in Williams Township. Some new businesses, starting 48,000 square foot buildings that will provide employment in the near future when those projects are completed. Also, the Dow Chemical expansion, $100 million expansion in Williams Township. That's expected to take about 18 to 20 months to complete that. And we won't get a full capture. We'll get about a half, 50% of the taxes will be levied on that site. However, about 200 research and development jobs will be created in Bay County. So those are positive signs for hopefully 2018. At the end of 2018 or 2019, we will begin to see hopefully an increase in revenue collections from property taxpayers throughout Bay County. And I think that continues to remain our major challenge. Retain population, create jobs, keep people here, and expand our tax base so that we can continue to provide the essential services that Bay County residents have always relied on and want to expect to continue in the future. So I do want to say the budget does contain some major system upgrades, which we believe are needed to stay effective and efficient, and are included in the budget proposal and will be highlighted shortly by Jan. Lastly, I want to express my strong gratitude to the finance and budget departments for their diligent work in reviewing all of the expenditures, reviewing the history of the last year's budget spending and the revenues that we have available to provide these services, and just express my gratitude to each and every member of the finance and budget departments that worked so hard to craft a budget that we believe will, when we engage with the legislative branch, will hopefully ultimately be totally in balance. And I want to say I recall to the commissioners, having been a legislator for 34 years, the executive proposes and the legislative branch, the board of commissioners, disposes. But we hope you'll look kindly at some of these requests. So, thank you very much for listening, and Jan, we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. So I'm here today, and I'm Jan Heisted, the Finance Director for Bay County, if you don't know me, and I'm here to give our recommendation for the 2018 budget. And the indirect cost plan that Ron talked about, the 16 plan is incorporated into this 2018 budget. It is a 2-year lag, and so that information takes a little bit for Ron to actually put together. So it's a very lengthy process, and there's a lot involved in it, and it's all sort of commingled between all of the departments, and the roll forwards and the different things, as Ron had mentioned, really do play a part and do change the budgets by department every year. And sometimes when you see something drastic as it's $100,000 more than the budget was the previous year, sometimes it's really just indirect costs. We had our buildings and grounds go out. This year, for instance, they're working on the health department. So those costs and that time generated will be assessed 2 years down the line, and it appear in the 2020 budget. So it's sort of a time process, and it's all really in there. And you don't really see it when you see the budget numbers, but please note that it's in there, and from year to year, it just keeps going through. So we're going to just go through our revenues and expenses, and then the recommendations that we have for the commissioners to consider. Our budget mission, we take this seriously, and the budget strives to balance the needs of the citizens of Bay County and its employees while ensuring the fiscal responsibility and excellent service to Bay County community. The budget summary, the total county spending for all funds in the 2018 budget is $140 million, which is up by $3 million from $137 million in 2017. Some of the main areas that you see are the medical care facility, general fund, the self-insurance health fund, and the 911 service fund. As Jim mentioned, 73% of that, which is our medical care and our 911, are millage-based, and that represents a $2.2 million increase. Our total general fund expenditures are budgeted at $36.8 million, up from $35.6 in 2017. The additional $1.2 million is based on negotiated wages and benefit increases that were again began in 2017. Requested part-time positions, contract services, and capital outlay projects that, and you'll see a little bit more detail on that.
Jan, could you add, going back before I forget that, the self-insurance fund, is that the healthcare fund?
Yes.
You
Yes,
had an increase in $500,000.
Yeah. We have an adjustment to that you will see on the commissioner's level too.
So that 500,000 is an increase from last year?
Yes, at this budget, but we will have an adjustment. Our renewal was, all the numbers weren't in at the time that we proposed this budget, and so we will be adjusting that at your level. And we estimate it to go down. So. Good.
And then I thought, but I might be wrong, that we had a nice fund balance in the self-insurance fund.
Yes. Okay. Yes, we do. And we actually are starting to try to use some of that fund balance, because as our auditors come in each year, they don't like to see too much sitting in that fund balance too. So we don't want to assess a cost to grants and other agencies when we have the additional funds sitting there. So they try to find a happy medium of what they believe, based on our claims, what is a safe level to have in that fund balance. And we have been budgeting to use funds in that each year.
Good.
Yeah, so that'll be coming drastically down a little bit. So. I'm going to focus on the general fund side. These are the general fund budgeted revenues. We have taxes at $15,965,000. Taxes make up 46% of our revenue, with state grants and other financing coming in. Other financing is our transfers in and our indirect costs. So that's where you're going to find some of the reimbursements coming in for the indirect side of it. And then our other revenue are our reimbursements and contributions, and then our charges for services. These have stayed roughly the same. We're starting to try to find additional revenue sources that will cover some of the expenditures that we have, and we'll be looking at that. Our levied tax rate for the county operating is 5.7257 mils, and that is the same as it was in 2017. This gives you a historical look at what our property tax collections were. And if you look at 2008 through 2016, those are actual numbers, what we actually collected, with 2016 coming in at 16.1 million. And then in 2017 and 2018, those are the estimated collections coming from equalization. Our 2018 general fund expenditures, based on category, again, wages and benefits are roughly 22 million, make up 61% of all of our expenditures. So if you look through, it's the majority of our budget. We don't have a lot of movement, or when we say we want to cut costs, it's harder to find those cuts when it's on the wage and benefits side. Doesn't give us a whole lot of movement, so that's why we'll be focusing more on trying to find additional revenues and to keep our budget stable. So our general fund detailed the wages. This budget represents an increase of $134,406, which is based on service enhancement requests. We have 3 part-time positions in the animal control area and 1 full-time and 1 part-time in the county clerk's office. The 1% lump sum or 3 personal days as negotiated are included in this budget, and it represents roughly $141,587. The health insurance fund, and this is where we talked a little bit earlier, the employer's health insurance contribution was budgeted here at $4 million, an increase of $200,000. At this time, the health insurance actual claims expense as projected in the 2018 renewal are not reflected in this budget. We believe that will decrease once we get those numbers in. Our next slide on our hits on the retirement. Our general group, as of our new valuation that was presented today actually at our retirement meeting, has the general fund going to being funded at 117%. That's up from 116 in the 2015 valuation. And again, those valuations are 2 years off also. The retirement sheriff's group went from 123% to 127%. So we are going to leave, or this budget represents leaving the contributions, the employer contributions at 4% as they have been in the past. This slide represents the historical percentages of the pension. Again, back in 2006, our sheriff's group was at 156%, and our general group at 132%. And we're now actually moving a little higher up from 15 to 16. Our valuation was slightly up with 116 to 117 and 123 and 127. So those are all good things. Those are creating a strong position for us in our budget. The 2018 major capital expenses, buildings and grounds with $426,000. Again, you've seen this before. $400,000 of that is the telephone system. We will not have that finished in this current year. We are expecting to have it finished in March, so we are asking to roll that forward or have that actually budgeted in the 2018 budget. So last year when we showed that we would use $1 million in fund balance, we will not need that. At this time, we will be using it, that portion of it, in 18. Our information systems software, we have an increase of $336,250. These are some upgrades that we really need to take a look at for our software. Again, just to keep our system up and running and to keep us more efficient and have the tools that everybody needs to do their job. We need to look at our Windows upgrade, our jury software, work order software, replacing NetArms and different things like that. We have in here a county-wide security audit. This is a new requirement from the grant side. It's budgeted at $46,250. In our cooperative reimbursement programs, in our prosecutor friend of the court, they are requiring this now, and I believe it's really needed. We haven't had that security audit based on the cybersecurity and things that are going to happen. Always a good thing to have, and I think we really need to take a look at what is our security level, and so that what people can actually get into and not. So even though it's a new requirement, I believe it's a useful tool for us and will help us over the years. Our special revenue fund, our 911 central dispatch, has $650,000 budgeted for their Motorola radio equipment that you have heard about before. This is just a comparison on this slide from 2017 general fund compared to 2018. The 17 budget with revenues and expenses came in with using a fund balance of $1,020,301. Our 2018, the way it's currently budgeted, is showing a deficit of $1.8 million between revenues and expenses. So that's what we're looking to, over the next few weeks, try to find additional revenues or to reduce costs as we work with the commissioners to find some of those balances. Our general fund and budget stabilization. Our budget stabilization is at $6.7 million, which is 20% of our operating budget. And we had just increased that in 2016. That was brought up to the 20% level. It was 15% before that. Our assigned and unassigned fund balance is $5.4 million, with the unassigned being $4.2 million, and the assigned is $1.2 million. The assigned fund balance is designated for a certain expense or a certain project, and the unassigned are available. And you see that every month when we bring our budget adjustments through. We're working off a $4 million fund balance. As you approve things that are not in the budget, that's the number we're taking down each time as we approve different things in the budget. So our total general fund and budget stabilization fund is at $12.1 million. It was $11.7 in 2015. In our 2016 calendar year, we increased that by $400,000 at the end of the year, once all of our revenues and expenses were accounted for. So our budget recommendations at this stage is to use approximately $1.8 million of unassigned fund balance to balance the 2018 budget. Continue to research additional funding revenue sources and grants to cover budgeted expenditures. Continue to prioritize capital outlay projects as to reduce the level of the 2018 projects based on need. Our capital outlay projects county-wide are budgeted at $3.7 million. And then additional decisions and adjustments will have to be made to the proposed 2018 budget to ensure the fiscal responsibility while still maintaining the excellent community service. With that,
Move to receive.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jan. I'm sorry, we need to go out of regular order for public hearing on the budget. So if there's anyone who'd like to speak to the budget, you can please step forward.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Seeing no. Oh, we got
I
Mr.
just
Marshall.
wanted, I forgot to highlight two individuals in my opening remarks today, and that is Jan, of course, Kim Presnich, who has been with the county working on the budget for some 27 years. And she went above and beyond call of duty, and her and Jan both mentored me almost on a weekly basis in terms of trying to grasp the complex county budget that Bay County has. And of course, look forward to working with Bob through this process and engaging with him and the commissioners. And Bob and I enjoyed great discussions too as we've talked about the priorities in the new budget. So Bob, thank you, Kim, Jan, and of course all the finance department for the diligent work, as I mentioned, that they've done. So look forward to working through this process and hopefully having it completed in December sometime. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, on item B, sorry. Pardon? Oh, we need no motion, go back in the regular order.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're ready now. Okay. Item B, resolution number 2017-207, the appointment of Joy Butler to the Bay County Jury Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we need our Sergeant at Arms. A request for appointment to the Department of Health and Human Services Board of Directors. We have two folks running, Mary Ewald Sales, who's the incumbent, and Sandy D. Shutt, or Shoot, one of the two names. So we'll need to take a roll call vote, please. They're doing the motion.
At the end?
No, we're
Okay,
good.
all right.
We're good.
So we start the roll call today with Commissioner Durancheck.
Sandy Shutt, please.
Krieger?
Sandy Shutt.
Begic?
Shutt.
Coonan?
Sandra Shutt.
Ryder?
Shutt.
Lutz?
Sandy Shutt.
And Herrick?
Sandy Shutt.
Unanimous. Thank you. Yes, to appoint.
Need a motion to appoint Sandy Shutt to the Department of Health and Human Services Board.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, City Manager, appointment of Bay City Commissioner Ed Clements to the Bay County Land Bank.
So
With three
moved.
terms.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. From the City Clerk, application for industrial facilities tax exempt certificate. Need a motion to receive?
Support.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have reports and resolution of committees. Ways and Means, Commissioner Lutz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today I bring resolution 2017-208, the opioid litigation from the county executive. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion? Commissioner Krieger.
With us taking this action, there will be no expense on the part of Bay County, correct?
Yes, that's correct. By joining the class action lawsuit, we will have no liability from Bay County standpoint, no expense. And I think there are discussions, I don't know what the time frame will be, it'll probably be lengthy, but Bay County has incurred costs as a result of the opioid crisis. And this would allow us to recoup some of the costs that we've already expended and also try to prevent some of the issues associated with the opioid abuse in the future. But I, with your permission, would defer to Amber Johnson, who did a tremendous job working with the attorneys. You know, at the last meeting, we heard from Linda, but Amber and the team, the legal team that has been basically retained by the County Executives of America, That's the same law firm that did the tobacco settlement, so they have a great track record, a great law firm, but Amber, with the chair's permission, would you want to add what's your role?
Sure. It's very true that we will not be incurring any legal fees or costs as a result of entering into any litigation. As she did indicate during her presentation at the last meeting, there is going to be some employee time that's dedicated to responding to discovery requests and things of that nature. But Brown & Brown has already worked with us very closely and has provided us with a good deal of information already. So at the end of the day, no matter the outcome, hopefully some injunctive relief will be granted. Even if there isn't monetary relief, we're obviously hoping for monetary relief as well. But it shouldn't cost the county anything other than some employee time.
Very good, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no more. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, I bring resolution 2017-209, fiscal year 2018 youth alcohol grant from the Sheriff's Department. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-210, fiscal year 2017-2018 Victim of Crime Act, local grant from the prosecutor. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is 2017-211, fiscal year. Fiscal year 2017-18 Crime Victims' Right Grant acceptance. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is 2017-212, the 2018 delinquent tax transfer to the general fund from the treasurer. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-213. It's the 2017 drain assessment rules from the drain commissioner. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is 2017-214, non-point source program grant funding from the health department. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-215, the update to Bay County Hazard Mitigation Plan, grant application, and the contract with MCOG, Emergency Management. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-216, the EMPG program agreement for fiscal year 2017 and 18 for emergency management. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-217, scrap tire cleanup grant program for mosquito control. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-218. It's the Bay City Area Transportation Study for 2018 Unified Work Program from BCATS. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is 2017-219, the memorandum of agreement with United Way of Bay County, the RSVP program from the Department of Aging. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-220, the purchase of service agreement with Region 7 Area Agency on Aging from the Department of Aging. I move that resolution.
Support. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-221. It's It's the budget adjustment for the Region 7 award of additional funding for nutrition services incentive program from the Department of Aging. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is 2017-222, budget adjustment for Region 7 unit rate increase for the Department of Aging. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-223, the payables for general, bayonet, center ridge arms. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-224, the budget adjustments for the Sheriff Department, Corporation Council, and the Civic Arena. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next is resolution 2017-225, the VOLA phone program agreement with BSB Communications from the information systems. I move that resolution.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And that's all I have for today's meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Lutz. Commissioner Ryder, Personnel and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Resolution 2017-226, speed camps reclassification. I would move that resolution forward.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 2017-227, amendments to the agreements with Saginaw Valley State University for Bay Community Health Clinic. I would move that resolution forward.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we have Resolution 2017-228, vacancies in the Juvenile Home, Animal Control, Department of Aging, Health Department, 911, Central Dispatch, Sheriff's Department, new positions in the Department on Aging. I would move that resolution forward.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all we have before you today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryder. Commissioner Durancheck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution 2017-229, status reports from the county executive. Would you move this forward?
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next, reports of the county officials, county executive. You good?
No, I think I've done enough speaking for this meeting, so I'll pass.
I tried to sneak it by. You all set? Really? Wow. Okay, any unfinished business? Any new business? Miscellaneous? Announcements? Appointments? We have just December, we got Department on Aging Advisory Committee, 2-year terms in districts 1, 3, 5, and 7. Is there any need for a closed session today, ma'am?
There is not, Mr. Chair.
Perfect.
Motion to adjourn is always in order.
Support. All in favor?